Okay, we are going to start the 11th parak of Sefer Yehoshua. The pasuk says, "Vayhi kishmaya Yavin melech Chatzur." It was when Yavin, the king of Chatzur, he heard, "Vayishlach el Yoivav melech Madon, velech melech Shomer vel melech Achshef." So he sent word to all of these kings, the king of Madon, Shimron, Achshef, vel malachim asher misafon bahar, and the kings who are on the northern side of the mountain, Ube'arava, and in the plain, Negev, which is south of the Kinoris, that's a place, Ubeshafela, and in the lowlands, Ubenafois Dor Miyam, and in the vicinities, in the districts, the areas that are by the west. Haknani and Mizrach, the Knani from the east, Umiyam, these are all places, nations, Vehamori, the Amori people, the Chiti, the Prizi, Vahayebusi, Bahar, all of them on the mountain, Vachivi Tachas Chermon, and the Chivi were at the footholds of the Chermon, Be'eretz HaMitzpah, in the land of Mitzvah. V'yetzuheim, so what happened? V'yetzuheim, and they went, B'chol Machaneim, and all their camps, Imam with them, Am Rav, a big nation, Kachol, like the sand, Asher al Sas Hayam Larov, that was on the seashore. V'sos V'recher Rab Ma'od. There's actually a key line over here. They had a lot of horses and chariots, tremendous amount. This is the first time where there's going to be a war where there's going to be a lot of horses and chariots. So nowadays, just to put that in perspective, a horse and a chariot is basically nowadays, imagine you're going out to war guns versus someone who's using bow and arrows.
A
I mean, that's
tank.
totally different category, right?
A tank. No?
Yeah, tank, whatever it is, it's a whole different level. Okay, so then the next pasuk says, hold on, got skipped. Okay, the fifth parak over here, pasuk rather. Vayavadu kol malachim, all of the kings gathered, ha'ilu, all of these kings. Vayavo vayachnu, and they went and they camped and they came together el mi maron lihilachim Yisrael, to a place called mi marom, to wage war against the Jews. And here's the key pasuk that we're going to focus on today. Vayomer Hashem el Yehoshua. So Hashem told Yehoshua over here, Al tira mipnehem, don't be afraid of them. The obvious question is, this is a bizarre statement. Why would we think that Yehoshua and the Jewish people would be afraid? They knew that Hashem was with them. So we'll come back to that question. So he said, don't fear them, ki mocher ke'es hazos, because tomorrow at this time, anoichi noisin es kulam chalalim of Bnei Yisrael. I'm gonna give all of you, you're all gonna be like corpses. You're gonna be dead bodies in front of the Jews. Es husehem te'akir. And this is the key line. This is gonna be the major focus for today. Hashem said, don't worry, they're all gonna be dead in front of you. What's the significance that they're all gonna be dead? Just say that you're gonna capture them. That's one question, but another question is, what's the explanation of these three words? Es susehem ta'akir ve'es markevoisehem tisroif be'esh. The horses, they are gonna become crippled. Right? This is gonna mean they're gonna be crippled. You're gonna cut the leg tendons. Why would you do that? What's the point of that? Ve'es markevoisehem, and their chariots burn in fire. Like, why can't you take from the spoils of this war? Number one. Number two, isn't this Sar Balei Chaim? That is the main question. You're not allowed to cause pain to animals. You're not allowed to damage animals. So why are we here? Are we crippling them over here? So let's start going in order over here. First of all, this word, Vayivadu, gathered. Just point out the Metsudus translates this Melashon Vad Va'asifa, gathering, like we just said. All right. The other word that we just saw, the takir, tasir ikar, main, remove like the main part. What it's referring to over here, sheyichrois araglayim. You're basically cutting their leg tendons. So you're enabling the horses to move anymore. They have sold the behemoth. You're cutting the main part, foundation. So they're not going to be able to be used for war anymore. We know from the game of Risk, the regular people are one. They're like pawns in chess, so to say. And the horse is five. Cannon's 10. But the horse is five, so a horse could do a lot. You see, even nowadays, they use in the parks sometimes and or big gatherings to control crowds. They the police they're sitting on a horse. Even nowadays, they have. So there's a lot of power in these horses. So we have to discuss what exactly going on over here. Let's just give a brief introduction to what we're dealing with before we proceed to get to the discussion about the animals and how it was permissible to cut off the leg tendons and cripple them, essentially, make them lame. So the art scroll over here gives a nice introduction. We know from the previous parak that Yehoshua conquered basically the southern half of the country. So in this parak, we're going to be discussing now conquering the northern part of Israel. That's what's happening over here. Now, Hashem helped them over here. Uh, so similar to what all of the kings in the south did, they gathered together to try to fight Yeshua and the Jewish people. So too, that's what the northern kings did as well. They tried to gather together, form one cohesive unit and one larger group. Now, the difference between the battle that occurred in the previous parak with the southern kings and this one is that there were only five kings. But this one is a tremendous amount more. A lot more. How do we know this? Well, we actually just read it. If we go back to the fourth pasuk, "Vayetzu heim b'chol machaneim imam am rav kechol." They were huge. They were like they were like the sand by the sea, the pasuk says. So this was a very big force to contend with. Now we're going to see, in addition to the force being very big, they had this sus v'recher mode. They had all of those horses and chariots, which basically nowadays is like the F-35 fighter jets, top of the line, right? So that's basically what's going on. Now, before we move on, let's analyze a few points over here with this business of the laming the animal, making it crippled. What's going on? How are they allowed to do that? So the truth of the matter is, the real place to start on this is actually the Radak. There is a very, very, very nice Radak over here, and they're all quoting this Radak. Everyone's talking about it. This is a very insightful Radak. It's actually going to be later on pasuk Tes. Pasuk Tes is going to say Yehoshua did that, and he made he broke the leg tendons from the horses and made them incapable of walking. So we see the Radak. This is the Radak or David Kimchi. Pasuk Tes says, "Why? Lahodia ki ma she'amar lo Hashem esu sehem ta'akir derech mitzvah amar lo." This is a mitzvah. Hashem told Yehoshua to make these horses lame, to cripple them. V'yesh leshel es Radak. Ma tam amar lo mitzvah zos b'milchama zo. Why? Why did Hashem tell Yehoshua to do this? Number one. Number two, specifically at this war. Ma shaloi siva loy b'milchama acheres. A bizarre commandment like this, a seemingly weird commandment like this, was never commanded previously. Why specifically over here? As we pointed out, other wars, they didn't have any of these horses. They didn't have any chariots. Ki im belakidas hayaros hayu hamolchamos kam chamishas hamalachim al givon ba'u l'lakta v'lo hayasricham asos v'rechev. The other wars, they weren't competing against. They weren't fighting against armies that had the horses, that had the chariots. They were just having good old-fashioned war without that. Aval, Zoha Mochama, Haisa Maracha Sha'orcha Mochama, Am Rav Lihilachim Im Yisrael Vayusrichim Asusim L'Recha Vayimim Om L'Roiv. This war, tremendous amount of people that they were fighting against. Number one, large in number. Also that they had the horses, they had the chariots. Kemosha Kosev or Isa Sos V'Rechev, Am Rav Memcha V'Loi Timsa Sharmokim Mochamas Acheros. All right, that's the proof. Besiva Hashem la'avid hasusim. Hashem commanded, you've got to destroy the horses, the chariots. You got to destroy it over there. V'harechev shayu agoyim nilchama behem. You have to destroy your opponents' horses and chariots. Key line over here, right by what we're highlighting right now. Ubitchu berachvam kira v'lo yodu yedu. Excuse me. Ki sheker asus teshua v'yisrael below rechav asuf nitzchum ve'epilum. The problem was these other nations that were fighting the Jews. They said, "Oh, we're going to have a military victory because look at what we have. We have these horses. We have these chariots." There was a concern that this would seep in to the Jewish nation as well. It's not Hashem. It's just the military success and preparation that we do. It's all about the horses. It's all about the horses. It's all about the chariots. But they didn't realize Sheker Hasus. That's a song. The song is based on this pasuk. Sheker Hasus. It's falsehood. All of you think that you're going to be prepared from a military perspective, and that's all it is. It's not true. It is all Hashem. Guess what? Even if the Jews don't have any horses and chariots, they'll still be victorious. If that's what Hashem wants. Vehepilum chalalam ki laHashem hateshua. Lefikach lo ratzu hakel yizbarach. She'avoz Yisrael lahem asusim v'amrachavos kadei shelo yivtechu bahem. Kam heim v'yachshavu b'livam. Ki masusim yasu l'machamas. That's precisely why Hashem didn't want the Jews, even after this war, to have the horses, to have the chariots. And the whole reason is, and then this is the key few words of this Radak, Kedei shelo yivtechu bahem. So that the Jews won't think, oh, the only reason why we're winning is because of these horses, because of these chariots. And think, Ki masusim yasu al-machamas. They don't want them, don't think that, oh, we're going to be victorious in war because of the horses. No, there's nothing to do with the horses. That's horseplay, so to say. Yeshua la'aker hasusim. Okay, so now the question is, so we understand the point of the Radak. Get the horses out of there now for future battles to realize that it's all Hashem who's running the show and who's causing the victories. Nothing to do with your military success. But why was the commandment to break and cripple the horses by cutting the leg tendons, breaking the leg tendons? Why wasn't the commandment to kill the horses? So to that, the Radak answers, Kilo haya davar she'aser behana. This wasn't like Yericho over here, which we discussed. Yericho, you weren't allowed to benefit from anything over there. It was everything in the Yericho area is consecrated. You weren't allowed to benefit from it. Like we know the story that happened after with Achan, as we learned. This wasn't an Isser Hana. It was not prohibited to benefit from these horses. Let's just keep that in mind. Right? Other animals from the areas that they conquered, they were allowed to benefit from. The camels, the donkeys. These are practical animals, and these are assets. You know, you have to put yourself in the picture. We live in a day and age that a lot has changed, but 2000 plus years ago, this was never an issue. They didn't have trains back then. They didn't have anything. The animals, that's where the money was. Farming. That's how they made money. So these are valuable assets. And guess what? They were allowed to keep those animals. But the horses, which were a major asset from a military perspective, that they were commanded, no, make them cripple. Siva la'akor kadesh lo yichum, in order that they can't be taken to war anymore. V'yiftechu behem, and then you're going to think, oh, it's just the horses that are causing the victory, not Hashem. Lo amar lahargim derish chashchasa. The commandment, Hashem never commanded Yehoshua to kill them in a destructive manner. Ki also lahashchas and Ephraim im loy lasoyrech. Important line. It's prohibited to kill animals unless you need to. They say in the halachas of Sar Balei Chaim, which we discussed in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch recordings, Rabbi Blam commented the halacha section, that you're allowed to kill animals if it's needed for you. For example, if you're hungry, right? You want the meat, you want the chicken, you're allowed to. If you have a mice problem in your house, they're causing damage, rats, you kill them. No problem, that's for a need. Ola eser behana. The ikr who lenasher parsos behimim arachuv is okay. There he's just saying, um, you can't kill the animal unless you need to, or they're prohibited to get benefit from. And then he just details exactly how they would do this to the animal, and they wouldn't kill them. Bazeh hadavar ela shelo tuchel alechas im timsa marabim makoyim utichya. They would still be able to graze these horses. They just couldn't really walk so much. I think they certainly couldn't be used for war. So that basically was the commandment. That's why this commandment occurred. Let's just delve into this a little bit more. A little bit of a deeper dive over here. The Ralbag also offers a similar explanation over here. So the Jews won't say says because of me, our strength, our military success, that's why this happened. To realize that it's Hashem that causes the victories. The Malbim adds on to this. This is the first war where the horses were used, as we just said. Therefore, specifically right now, the Jews needed to be warned from Hashem and realize Sheker Asos Shua. It's not the horses that are going to cause the victory, it's Hashem. The Kimotzi Shlal Rav asks, what about Sar Balei Chaim? Quotes the Gemara Avodah Zarah Yud Gimel. Talks about another case where Sar Balei Chaim wouldn't apply. And the Gemara, if you look it up over there, actually quotes this pasuk that we're learning right now in Yehoshua about making the horses crippled, breaking the leg tendons as a proof that in certain scenarios, Sar Balei Chaim would not apply. Definitely here, Hashem said to do this himself. This is the creator of the universe, of everything that exists. Then he goes to, we understand if Sar Balei Chaim is a prohibition from the Torah and Issa D'Oraisa, right? This is actually what Tosfos over here asks. Question is the argument in the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Chav Ches Sar Balei Chaim, is it prohibited from the Torah or just rabbinically? Is it Issa D'Oraisa Mid'Rabbanan? So we understand if it's D'Rabbanan, if it's rabbinic, how it could get waived. But let's say it's from the Torah. How could you waive the prohibition? There's another case in the Gemara over there. So it's asking the case in the Gemara, how could you waive the prohibition? We understand the case by Yehoshua. That's a Horasha al Pi Dibor. That's a temporary ruling that Hashem himself gave. But in other scenarios, how could you ever waive it? Taisus explains the rabbis have the ability to uproot something even from the Torah. They have a reason to do it, but the Ramban offers a different answer. Very insightful answer. There is no prohibition of Sar Bali Chayim painting animals when it's needed for people. When we need to do something like we just said, so that we don't come to a mishap of a prohibited pleasure, or to it's for other reasons like that, then Tsar Balechayim doesn't apply. And the proof is you're allowed to kill animals if you want to eat it. Hunting we don't believe in because you're not going to eat it, and it wouldn't even be kosher shechita, kosher a good slaughtering if you're going to hunt. But if it's needed, then you could. There's another interesting question on this. I don't understand. Why does Yehoshua need a warning over here? We already know it says in Chumash, Lo yarba lo susim. A king isn't allowed to have a lot of horses. So how then, why then do you need a special warning and instruction not to keep these horses? So the Hadras Kodesh over here answers and he says, that's only for an individual, but this is with an entire nation. So we would have thought that since it's an entire nation, oh, now this prohibition doesn't apply. Because they're not talking about an individual. Yehoshua would be like everyone else. Meaning he would get an equal share of all the spoils, and it wouldn't even be too many horses for him, or if it would be the status of the king. So therefore, since it was like a nation, that prohibition wouldn't apply to him. It wouldn't be relevant. Consequently, it needed to be that you had a specific commandment over here, not to rely on the not to keep the horses in this case, and the chariots like the Radak, like the Ralbag. Pretty insightful idea. Something else that should be pointed out about this interesting commandment over here is this is actually a problem with a lot of people. There's an idea of a person having mercy, being merciful is a very important attribute. Rachamim is very important. But we have to make sure that it's directed, it's channeled in the right area. We know that anyone who is merciful to the creations, Hashem will be merciful to him. Kol Racham al Brios. Then Hashem will give him Rahmanas. But we have to make sure that we don't demonstrate our mercy. We're not merciful to cruel people. Because if we are compassionate to the cruel, eventually we'll be cruel to the compassionate. So the rabbi teaches. So we have to be very careful of such a thing over here. A perfect example of this was Doeg, Hadomi. Who's Doeg? He advised Shaul to spare Agag, who was the king of Amalek. It's going to come up later on in Sefer Shmuel. And we know what ended up happening to Agag. Agag was kept alive and Haman ended up coming from him. So it's not good. Furthermore, Doeg, he reported to Shaul that he saw Achimelech, who was head of the Kohanim, in the city of Nov, which is a city of Kohanim, and that he was giving food to David when David was fleeing from Shaul. So Shaul ordered that, okay, we have a Morid b'Malchus situation. You rebel against the king, Yechai Misa. It's considered a rebel. And Shaul commanded, and Doeg carried it out, that all of the Kohanim of Nov should be executed. And that's what happened. It's a pretty sad story. Shaul himself, who spared Agag, later pursued David in a deadly chase. So we see from over here many times. So we see from here, Shaul, he's being compassionate, so to say, to people that you're supposed to be cruel to, and being cruel to people you're supposed to be compassionate to. You have to be very careful about this. have to make sure a lot of times people have feelings. They have to be channeled in the right direction. That's the key. They can't be in the wrong place. Imam Loays addresses a question that we asked in the beginning of today's session, which is why does the pasuk come along and Hashem tells Yehoshua, Al tira mipneihem, don't be afraid. Hashem gave a specific warning to Yehoshua. Don't be afraid of them over here. Don't worry, you're going to be victorious. Why specifically over here? Was there a concern about this? As opposed to in other places. So the Malaways comments over here and says, look, Yehoshua, he took a look at the army that he was about to fight it with, and he had a nevuah prophecy. Shem said, don't fear them. Why? It implies from here that Hashem was able to tap into Yeshua's mind, and Yeshua was actually afraid. Question is why? Maybe you'll say they were large in numbers. They had a lot of horses, chariots. What's numbers? For Hashem could, in a millisecond, could destroy all of them miraculously. What's numbers? Furthermore, in previous wars, Hashem typically says, Ki be'adecha nasati oisam. I gave them in your hands. Don't worry, I gave them over. They're good. But over here, what does it say? As we highlighted before. Don't worry, don't be afraid, Yeshua ki ke'es hazos anochi noisin es kulam chalalim lifnei Yisrael. Today they're all going to be corpses, dead bodies. Why do you need to specify they're going to be dead bodies? Just say, I'm going to give them over in your hands. He says there's three reasons why Hashem told Yeshua don't fear them. Number one, in a natural way, Yeshua felt naturally. If you're going to fight this war without any intervention from Hashem, it's a very difficult war. Because if you're going just with what the nature is without the intervention of Hashem, the numbers are going to win. They had a lot more numbers, the Jews would be defeated. Furthermore, they had the horses and the chariots. Yeshua was therefore concerned. Maybe he and the Jews won't have the merits to cause a divine intervention over here, to cause Hashem to get involved and for them to be victorious. Because the more difficult a war is, in terms of from a natural perspective, without a divine intervention, the more merits you need in order to be victorious, which Yeshua thought that he was lacking. That's one reason specifically over here. A second reason is that Yeshua was concerned maybe he wouldn't have enough merits because there were already miracles that were performed before this event occurred. And therefore, he thought, I'm out. I'm out of merits. We find by Yaakov also. Katanti makol chasodim makol emes asher tzisa avdecha. After the miracles that were performed for him, he was concerned that maybe he has no merits left. The Gemara also talks about Shem Yigrum Chet. Maybe he would sin. That would cause them not to get applied. And thirdly, and that's this answer over here, maybe someone was going to sin. And that sin would cause the defeat. Maybe their enemies would have a merit. Their merit will cause their victory of the enemies. So therefore, Hashem specifically said, no, don't fear. Don't worry, it's all going to be good tomorrow. Whenever you have a set time for something, the prophecy will get fulfilled, like by Sfardeya. Then he brings a story about this with Rashi and this idea. And we learn from this story that if the prophecy is going to get fulfilled exactly, then it will occur. So anyways, these are a few interesting insights on about the horses and situation. Just a few more miscellaneous points over here. The Ralbag explains that they saw that most of the southern cities didn't unite and were defeated, and therefore Yavin convinced all the northern kings and nations to join together to unite to try to be victorious. What does it mean, Vayihu Kishmaya, when he heard Yavin, the king of Chatzor, that he did this? He heard that the Canaanites, they were wiped out, the kings were humiliated, executed. That's what the Chidah explains. Or he heard that Yehoshua returned to Gilgal and would not be on guard against attack. That's the Lev Aaron. So you have different explanations over here. Anyways, these are the first few psukim of this parak with a few more details on the Sar Balechaim. Any questions, comments?
Torah Malachi is that's technically that's killing the animal in the most like painless fashion, right?
Sar Balechaim could be
What's what we're calling? Yeah, I'm sorry.
you're causing pain to an animal for no reason. Whether that's
But
through injury, whether that's through killing. When little kids see ants outside on the floor and they just step on them because it's fun, that's Sar Balechaim.
yeah, but as far as but in but the fashion in which you kill an animal, if it's for a purpose, doesn't it's saying it doesn't matter.
Well, if it's for a purpose, then it's permissible.
But the meaning the fashion, I'm saying it doesn't matter how you do it.
Well, if you're not going to eat it, if it's a pest, for example, like a mouse, so then you could yeah, you could kill it. If it could be done in a less painful way, then great. If
Let's
not,
say let's let's say you live in Muncie and there you have a deer problem with you have a little farm and you have a deer problem with your produce. Can you shoot the deer on your property?
I'm not sure. I don't know legally what it is.
Let's say
But
legally, I'm not talking about I'm talking about halachically.
halachically, you're saying
Yeah.
if to get the legal aspect out, if you're
Yeah.
allowed to, I would probably try to install a fence or something so you don't need to come onto that.
But they're hopping the fence, whatever they're doing, whatever
You
they're
make
doing.
it taller or something. I'm saying,
All right.
and if it's the only way, so then maybe you could. The question is, we're getting rid of them, even get rid of the problem, because why are they coming there? They must be attracted to something that you have there, so just more are going to come. I mean,
Yeah.
so you have to tackle the root of the problem and stop that. Yeah.
But you could say that about a mouse too. A mouse is there must be some food, or something that's going on in the house. That's is that the question we're asking? I'm saying that's the question.
So for mice, the question would be, is it better to use a trap or poisoning for the food? So it
Yeah.
seems like the poisoning for the food is more effective in the long run. Seems like than the traps. Traps one at a time. A lot of times they're hard. You don't want to, unless you're an exterminator. But if you're a regular person in a house, you don't want to take the dead mouse out. But if they can eat the food, they're probably going to run outside and die with it. It's not going to be as uncomfortable. So I'm pretty sure posts can permit the using the poison food.
Oh yeah, but as far as I'm all right. That's one example. But I'm saying, as far as how you kill the animal, if it's for a purpose, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't, but if it could be done in a less painful way, then that's better.
That
That's
might
the
be
whole
what
idea with
that might be
shchita.
what I'm asking. I'm saying that's what I'm asking. If you could do
Correct.
it less painful, all right.
Yes, that's why when it comes to shchita, a lot of people aren't aware, but the way that the animals are slaughtered is a very painless type of way. It doesn't even like process in their brain.
Uh-huh.
It's done. The knife has to be very sharp in the exact spot. If you look into it, you'll research, you'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's what I was. All right. But all right, fine.
Yeah, look, Sar Chaim is a topic which
Very fun.
takes hours and hours of research to do. These are just few points that came up about it. So,
Yeah.
all right, so we'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem.
Shkach.
All right, have a wonderful
All right. Have a good day.
day.